Hello, this is the Porgcorner with your hosts Mark and Steven. We talk comics, film, books, television, science, aliens, and gaming. We come from different nerddoms. Steven lives and breathes Star Wars, and I am a Superman and DC fanatic. We also touch on the Marvel Universe and other sci-fi and fantasy franchises. Now, let's get to episode 5, our Alita Battle Angel review. Let's dive right into it. Alita takes place in the year 2563, 300 years after what they call in the movie The Fall. There's a floating city called Zalem that is tethered to the city below, Iron City. Zalem dumps its trash onto Iron City, but we're never actually taken to Zalem. It's kind of hinted at as
a big mystery of how amazing Zalem is.
Right. It's kind of like shown as this idealized heaven, essentially.
Yeah.
All the characters in the movie want to get to Zalem.
Yeah, everybody wants to be in Zalem.
So, and you do see little peaks of it in the film. The CGI is strong, so you see kind of tall skyscrapers and greenery and all this stuff.
It's definitely a floating city. It's not like a platform. It's legitimately a city up there. They basically give you a slight hint, a taste of what it is up there, to not only the characters in the movie, but us as an audience, which is good. And and I would say Iron City and Zalem are about the same size.
Yeah,
because it just sits right on top of it.
That's true. Yeah, it's and Iron City itself is kind of surrounded by a wall of water.
Yeah, that was really cool.
That was actually really
cool. The water wall.
So Zalem dumps this trash onto Iron City, because they're very nice people up there. And there's a character, Dr. Ido, played by Christoph Waltz, who rummages through the trash heap, and it seems like he does this often to look for parts. Eventually, he finds the head of a cyborg, and he names her Alita. He takes her back to his workshop, and he attaches a body to her. Mm-hmm. So Alita herself does not have any memory of her past, but mysteriously is able to perform advanced martial arts. And I forgot the name of the martial arts in the film, but it's something that was lost 300 years ago.
Yeah.
So she's literally the only character in the film that knows it.
Yeah, exactly. She's the only one that knows how to do it. Right. In real life, it looks like jujitsu. Yeah. But they called it something else I can't remember the name of right now.
I would not be able to know that because I cannot tell the difference between the different martial arts. So essentially the film, the overarching story of Alita is obviously follows her. So it's her journey to reclaim her memory and kind of become be reborn, I would say, like as a new person. She's essentially human in her emotions and her thoughts.
Right. I mean, she has a full human brain that has survived for 300 years, basically, in the trash heap.
Yeah, I mean, she's basically portrayed as like a teenage girl, and she acts like that for the most part.
Correct, because that's what Dr. Ito tells her.
Right,
he says, you're a teenager, because she has a young, childish face.
Right, and actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I wanted to touch on kind of the CGI and the look of not only the world, but Alita herself. Mm-hmm. So I actually love the look of Alita in this. I thought the motion capture is really strong, and the big eyes, I'm a big fan of that. We were watching a video earlier from the makers of the film, and they made her eyes big because the actress, Rosie Salazar, has big expressive eyes, and they wanted that to come through on film. I'm a fan of that. What did you think?
I think you said it best after we saw it. The big eyes is, I would say, because it follows the anime style, the drawing style of the original artwork. But in my opinion, they did not need to do that in this live-action movie. Because, I mean, honestly, she's the only one. She's the only one with oversized anime eyes. Yeah. Everybody else has human-sized eyes. So to me, it didn't really make that big of a difference. For me, it took away a little bit of the realism.
Okay, I mean, I see that, but at the same time, she is unique. Like, to get back to that. Like,
sure.
She is the last cyborg from 300 years ago that's super advanced.
Correct.
So she looks different.
You're right. It makes her stand out, and it definitely portrays her as an individual character or person from the past. But I just don't think that it needed to be a part of the story. I don't think they needed to do it to have told the story.
Yeah. No, I understand that, because like one of the controversies when the first trailer came out was a lot of people thought the eyes were kind of ridiculous in terms of the size of them.
Well, okay, so we're on CGI right now. So the first trailer that came out, the teaser trailer, again, the animation was terrible. they hadn't refined it. They hadn't done the mapping on it. They hadn't cleaned it up. So yeah, it was big-eyed, tiny girl, and then it was just kind of choppy. It just wasn't smooth. The graphics were less than perfect, less than stellar, you know. But once you see the movie, the graphics, the CGI, it is amazing. It's mind-blowing how good it looks. Even with all the close-ups they do of Alita's face, it's really, really precise. It's really great. Really well done.
They are really confident in the CGI in this film because they have so many shots of her just looking at a mirror, for example, perhaps seeing her martial arts. Like, there are a lot of scenes of just her. So they are confident that we can see all the flaws or everything good with that CGI. So I like that, you know?
I do too. They didn't try to hide it. No, because they did awesome motion capture.
Yes.
And that's why. So she really does know martial arts.
Rosie Salazar?
Yes. So that's her performing and doing those moves.
That's cool.
So yeah, the motion capture was stellar. It was amazing.
Yeah. One other thing with the CGI, and obviously we spent a lot of time on Alita herself because that's the main look. That's the main point of the CGI.
Focus.
That's a big focus. But again, the world itself. So I always say in pretty much every horror reviews, when I see a movie, a big part of if I like it or not is if it's a world that I want to be in. That I want to inhabit, that I could see myself in. And it's funny because this movie is a dystopian story about pretty much like humanity barely surviving.
Right.
And I still want to be there because it's dystopian, but it wasn't gloomy. There's not clouds in the sky all the time. It's not raining.
Yeah.
It's not dark. A lot of it takes place in the daytime.
See, that was what I thought was interesting, is that it was not dark.
Yeah.
So for a city that literally has another city towering over it and covering it, the sun was out and it was shining, and like kids were playing and they were going to sporting events together, and it was a positive environment to be in. It just wasn't the best of the best.
Right.
So everybody is still trying to achieve Zalem.
What it is so many movies that take place in dystopian futures concentrate obviously on the bad stuff, the political aspects of it. Yeah. I mean, naturally, like that's the main overarching world they live in, right? But very few concentrate on the fact that humans are resilient, and even in the face of like really terrible odds, they'll find a way to have their kids playing,
right?
And find a way to make do. And that's what this movie really did.
That's exactly, because it's been 300 years of this. Because Zalem is the last floating city post the fall, and so Iron City is the last existing city for everybody to be welcome to. We said it the other day, but it's a melting pot of all the cultures of the world came together for this one last major city on Earth.
Right. And it's, it has its problems, but it seems like a pretty good environment, which I appreciate that the filmmakers went that route. Let's talk a little bit about another positive aspect of this film, which coming out of it, this is what stood out the most to me, which was the editing and the pace of the film. So there's some weak aspects of the film, but like that is what made this a strong film to me. Every scene after scene after scene, it all lined up well. The story progressed at a good clip. I was never bored. Some scenes obviously are more subdued and some are action-packed, and they found that balance, that right balance between the two. And very few movies in this genre, in like sci-fi and comic book films, I feel like are able to really get that. I felt this one did it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was on the edge of my seat the entire movie, even for the slower parts. But I was like, oh, what are they going to do? What are they talking about? How is this going to progress into the next scene? I loved it. I was on the edge of my seat for it.
So to kind of go to the negative a little bit, after saying the editing is great and the pacing is great, there's one scene in the movie where Alita is at her love interest, and we'll talk about him, Hugo's apartment, and Steven actually stepped out at this part. But it slows down to a point that feels out of place. Luckily, the scene is only, 2 minutes long or something, and they kind of ended on a high note with a joke at the end. But that was the one time where the dialogue itself was not strong, and so it kind of took me out of the film.
Yeah, and to that point, though, I was talking about it earlier, is it falls under that like Romeo and Juliet storyline, I'll do anything for our love, but it's teenage love, so they don't really know what that means. Right. They're just willing to basically die for one another.
Yeah, and so the scene specifically that I'm talking about is basically Alita's in his apartment. He wakes up And they have some back and forth, and she eventually ends up taking her heart. And her heart, early in the film, they tell us it can basically power a city. Like, it's a really advanced piece of machinery. She takes it out of her chest. It's still attached, though. And she hands it to him. She's like, "You can have my heart." Like, literally. It's a literal thing she says.
Yep. Yeah.
And so that's the scene. But the dialogue was pretty clunky.
Sure.
Overall. Let's go to heroes. We're going to talk about heroes of the story, the protagonists, and then the villains right after. So there are four main characters. Well, 3.5. We'll touch on it for the heroes. Alita, Dr. Ito, Hugo, and then the silent nurse, a very important character. The villains that we'll talk about are Mahershala Ali, which is Vector, Jennifer Connelly as Sharon, Ed Skrein as Zapan, and Gruwishka, which is played by Jackie Earle Haley. And the mystery villain we'll get to after that. All right, well, let's start with Alita. So I felt like she had a pretty strong arc overall. The whole point of the story is her regaining her memory, becoming human, as I mentioned before, and basically finding her destiny, like any hero's journey.
Yeah, no, it was awesome hero's journey. Trying to fulfill the destiny she doesn't know exists.
Right.
She's learning about herself on this journey, right, and finding out that she had a bigger destiny than she could ever imagine. Right. And it's leading down this path once again.
Yeah, it's it feels very epic, her story. I mean, again, 300 years, old cyborg, that's lost technology. But the transition, again, the arc that she goes on from basically being a teenage girl, not knowing anything, learning about this world, to then becoming this warrior that becomes this hero for the people in Iron City by the end, I felt like it was a really natural progression. I felt like the actress Rosie Salazar played that really well through, again, her facial expressions, through, her motion capture. You really felt like she was a character that you could embrace. It was really well done.
For a CGI cyborg, she was extremely human and attachable.
Right. You felt invested in her story. Yeah. And that's, isn't that the point of any character?
Yeah, but I just see it as irony, like, oh, there's a on-screen CGI character playing a cyborg, right? But she does it so well that you are just totally invested in the human element of it. Right.
She always feels and the boyfriend, Hugo, says this. He says, "You're the most human person I know." Yeah, one of the, cringy lines.
You're more human than anyone I know.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of true. She does come across like that on screen. All right, the next major hero is Dr. Ito, played by Christoph Waltz. He is a catalyst for the story. He pushes the story forward at many points, right?
Right.
He finds Alita. He's the one that Alita eventually finds out that he is a bounty hunter. And that kind of motivates her to become a bounty hunter. So he's every step of the way, along with Alita, pushing her, essentially, whether intentionally or unintentionally.
Yeah, definitely unintentional, because he's trying to protect her and keep her safe like a child. Like, he wants her to be his teenage daughter.
So obviously he's taking this on as a father figure.
Yeah.
And you really felt that too. I thought he had a strong performance, Christoph Waltz, with that. Yeah. Hugo, the love interest of the story. He's played by an actor, Keanu Johnson. I felt that he started out kind of weak, his acting performance. And again, that's partly also the dialogue that he was given.
Yeah.
By the end, I felt that he got stronger, both as an actor, and I felt the dialogue got a little better. But overall, out of the heroes in the story, I felt like he was the weakest one.
Yeah, sure, he's the weakest hero. But I wouldn't say that his acting was the problem. I think he played a fumbling love interest. He kind of falls heads over heels for her, almost literally, and kind of fumbles through words and making short or small talk with her and Dr. Ito. When he shows up, he kind of seems like a bad actor, but it's not. He's actually such a good actor that it seems like he's performing dumbling teenager.
Yeah, maybe that was intentional to make it look like a CW romance and all that. Yeah,
but it's the dialogue. The written word is just, we'll get to that.
Yeah. So with him, his arc in this story, because we're talking about arcs for all these characters, he is part of this gang, essentially, of people that go around kidnapping cyborgs or people with augmentations and ripping those augmentations off of them, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty violent gang to do that. But they make it a point to say he specifically never kills anyone.
No, they don't harm anyone. They just...
They do harm them.
No,
they just don't kill them.
They're stealing from them. So harming them, they're not killing anyone. They're not stopping their heart. They're just removing...
Arms and limbs.
Robotic arms and limbs. I don't know.
So someone removed your arm, that's not a...
It's a robot arm. I don't understand why you think that's going to hurt.
I mean, it definitely hurts, I'm sure. I'm sure they have, like, some sort of feedback with them. It's 300 years in the future,
Sure, some of them do. I mean, Alita does, but she's the only one with their special body.
I guess. So, with Hugo, he does that. That's his, like, side gig to get money.
Yeah.
And so it's not a good thing to do, and his arc is basically he learns the errors of his ways, and he comes around and believes it's not right to do that. So I felt like that was a good arc for him.
Mm-hmm.
And Alita obviously is a catalyst for that. He falls in love with her. He realizes that he can't be doing this to Cyborg or people with augmentations.
Yeah.
So that was a good character overall. And then the silent nurse, the most important character. The reason I mentioned that is because they kept showing this actress. So this is Dr. Ito's like nurse assistant,
right?
At the clinic that he runs, and they keep showing her, and she has really strong facial expressions and eye expressions and all that. Like, I mean, the actress did a really good job, but they don't give her dialogue, at least anything meaningful. So which was kind of frustrating to me.
So for me, she had like one major element that was important, and she's the second person we meet after Dr. Ito is walking around the junkyard, and it shows her with a cyborg arm, and that introduces us to the fact that, oh, Dr. Ito works on cyborgs or helps people in some way. So that's important. But then they just kind of like forget about her, and she just exists. She's in the background. She's part of all the scenes. I really felt like she was going to be like a philosopher character of some sort.
Right.
Like have some...
Like a mentor.
Yeah, some word... Not a mentor, because I think Dr. Ito is more of a mentor. But somebody with like words of wisdom. Somebody that can kind of step in after Dr. Ito goes, no, you can't go out after dark because you're a teenager. Right. She should popped in and been like, it's okay, he's just yada yada.
Right.
Some philosophical statement.
Yeah, I mean, like kind of the way I was thinking her character would go, or should have gone, was so Dr. Ito is a father figure. She would be like a big sister to her. But that we never get that from her. All right, let's get to the villains. So the main villain, at least we think this is the main villain, is Vector, played by Mahershala Ali. He's kind of, I guess you could think of him as the head of a gang. That's the feeling I got, or like a business guy who has shady dealings.
Right, he's the quintessential business gangster.
Yes, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, he's the business gangster.
Right. Like, he's the guy that runs a legitimate, quote-unquote business, who on the side is killing...
But all of it's shady, yeah.
And it's all shady, and kills people and all that stuff. He does a good job playing that that type of character. Yeah. And one thing I did appreciate about the way they presented him in this film was he never comes off as overly villainous. Like, he doesn't have the twirling mustache or anything. Yeah. He's not overly... what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of menacing.
Yeah, he's a great character in the sense that he's playing his role like in the world of this Iron City. He said it to Hugo once. He said, "I'd rather rule in hell than serve in heaven." Right.
He says that to Hugo because Hugo's the one character who's like obsessed with getting to Valhalla. Everyone wants to get there, but they're kind of like, yeah, I'll just live my life. He's like obsessed with getting there, and he says that to Hugo to try to convince him that this is all for folly. I'll take you under my wing. You'll become one of my goons, essentially.
Exactly.
So I thought that was a strong character because of that. I wish there was a little bit more of him, actually. Vector as a character. Yeah. Jennifer Connelly, she kind of works with Vector. She's someone that kind of does his pulls the strings to get all the business dealings that he needs under the table done. Yeah. So she's that assistant character. She is also Dr. Ito's ex-wife.
Yeah, but she's not his assistant. She is the mechanic. She is the doctor, the designer, the engineer behind his sports team crew.
What I should have said was she's his number 2 in this organization.
Yeah, right. I think that's better.
Yeah. She like only answers to Vector,
right.
but she can control the rest of the organization.
Right.
That's her.
She's number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's like an engineer, and she puts together some of the big, scary other villains, the henchmen that we see. But she's not in the movie much. She, again, is Dr. Ito's ex-wife, and she has a small arc in the film because she ends up helping Alita near the end. Mm-hmm. So she does have an arc. So she kind of turns around and becomes a good person, a good guy. Next one is Ed Skrein as Zapan. He plays a bounty hunter. So this world is filled with bounty hunters. Dr. Ito is one as well. Mm-hmm. But Zapan is known as like the best bounty hunter in all of Iron City, and everyone fears him. He walks around with this legendary sword to get his marks. I like the character because he was a third element.
Yeah, he
wasn't working directly for Vector per se. He's a bounty hunter. He has his own life. He makes his own decisions. So he's a third element that he's his own character.
Right. There's the Zapan storyline, Alita and Zapan storyline, along with the main storyline of the movie. Right.
You can feel their kind of animosity towards each other as much as you can with Alita's animosity towards the big guns, the Vectors, and so on and so forth. So I thought he was a strong character, and that sword was pretty badass. One of the characters that did not really have his own journey is Gruiska, played by Jackie Earle Haley. In the film, I felt that he just really played just a henchman.
Definitely oversized cyborg henchman.
Yeah. It did not feel like he had an arc. So
no, he was, and he kind of says it too. He says, "I lived in this underworld my entire life until my new master showed up and gave me reason."
Right, and I guess that's all you have to say. He's just a big body to fight Alita.
Yep, exactly.
The final villain, and for me, it was a kind of a surprise, I guess, in that his name is Nova. And we get Nova first in flashbacks about halfway through the film. That he is the guy pulling the strings.
Yep.
He lives in Zalem, and he looks down at Iron City, and he can see everything.
Oh yeah. He's connected in every single way, whether it's electronic or actual visually seeing things, or even projecting himself into other people's bodies.
Right. That's the big thing, is that it's revealed that he can basically inhabit the body of, first he does it to Gruiska, and then he does it to Vector.
Yeah.
And he does it to Vector often.
He does it to Vector often, but Vector doesn't know that can happen. He says, "I wonder if he's gone or not." And then Nova pops into Vector and says, "No, I'm still here."
So I think he knows he can take him over. Someone's told him,
You think so?
Sharon told him?
I think that was the first time.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I just based on the way that performance was done, I feel like that was the first time that Nova did that to Vector. Yeah.
I always, my feeling at the end of the film was that Vector always worked for him. Like he was, the number 2 to Nova's number 1.
Yeah.
And that he would inhabit him whenever he needed to, but it just didn't feel great, obviously.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that I feel that was the first time.
Yeah.
I know, yes, he does work for Nova, but in the sense of like a phone call.
Right.
Not
not body possession.
Right.
It's so again, that happens like halfway through the film with Nova doing that. And I think there were maybe 4 major flashbacks in the film. We got one of Alita on Mars, or no, on the moon, fighting.
Yep.
We have another with Alita fighting, like training in a ship.
Yep.
With her squad, and then we have the final one is, there's one other
where her and her squad are climbing up the tether.
Right, which I'm glad you mentioned because that brings us to the ending of the film.
Yeah.
And so good timing on that one. The final flashback, so Alita's gotten these flashbacks throughout the film, and she's finally put her memory together. More or less. I mean,
most
there might be, most of it.
There's a bunch of holes, but yeah.
Right, most of it. And so the final flashback is her with the squad from the Martian Alliance, is what we're told is the name of this group. And they are climbing up the tethers to Zalem.
Yep.
And we see Nova push a button, and he sends this, how do you describe it? These circular
It was a tether blade.
Tether blade.
So it's like a saw blade running down the tether to basically chop anybody off of it.
Right, and he succeeds.
Yeah.
He defeats the squad.
He does. it tears up most of the squad, and then it rips the tether in half, and so Alita and her squad leader are hanging on, and the squad leader says something like, never give up. We will fight till the end.
Right.
Finish the mission.
Right. Finish the mission.
Yeah, and then they fall.
And we're and again, the context of the whole story tells us that is a major pinnacle moment where this whole squad dies. We're made to believe that this whole squad is cyborgs like her.
Yeah.
And most of them die. They perish in this event.
Right.
Of trying to defeat Nova. And so I like that Nova is a character that is mysterious. And even by the end, we still don't understand him.
Correct.
Or his motivations at all.
At all, no.
We know nothing
But we know he's been around for over 300 years.
Right. He does say, I think, at the end, like, I'm immortal, or someone mentioned that he's immortal.
Yeah, I think he says something about, up here, I know how to make something immortal, or make myself immortal.
Right, which is also a reason why he probably stays up there. Yeah. Like, he's never going to come down Iron City.
Never.
He's going to stay in his fortress. So, let's talk about, again, we talked about the lore a little bit, but let's talk about The Fall. They call it in the film The Fall. And again, the film takes place 2563. 300 years before was The Fall. What is that? My perception, I think, varies from your perspective.
A little bit.
Perspective on what that is.
Yeah.
Do you have what did you gather from the film, I should say?
So my view on The Fall, we know it was a war.
Right.
We know it was a war between the Martian Alliance and Earth.
Right.
Now, my question is the Martian Alliance actually Earthlings who have been colonizing Mars for, hundreds of years, and now there's a war that's come home?
Right.
Because of something, mostly Nova, something that Nova has done. And that's my speculations of why it happened. Something between the two worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with that. So in the film, they tell us that there is this big war between the Martian Alliance and Earth. Mm-hmm. And Earth has all these floating cities, dozens or hundreds or whatever they say in the film.
Yeah.
There are a lot of them. Yeah. And the Martians attack the Martian Alliance, and they destroy every single city except Zalem.
Yeah.
So Zalem is the last remaining city on Earth, such a floating city at least. So that's the lore they tell us in the film. What made me skeptical of this was that, again, this is what they tell through generations, 300 years, and this is what all the characters believe.
Right.
But what made me think that maybe that wasn't the case was because Zalem is kind of like Elysium. Remember that film? Mm-hmm. It's this heavenly place where probably all the rich people are, and everyone else is down below, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought that Alita and her squad were kind of a rebellion. And the reason why they're coming from Iron City up through the tethers to get there is to lead this rebellion, to overthrow this elite class of people. And I don't know what brought that thought to my head, but it felt like if that story was true, the Martian Alliance versus Earth, wouldn't they have just drop shipped onto Zalem instead of coming from below?
Well, I'm sure there's a defense system of some sort. And we've seen the space shuttle.
That's true. We did see a space shuttle.
And we've seen her on the space shuttle in the flashback. So they were in space at some point.
What throws holes in my theory is mostly the flashback on the moon. Right. Because that's the only one we see that's off.
There's a battle on the moon. So they have the midpoint battle, somewhere between Mars and Earth, which would be on the moon, fighting each other.
Yeah. That's the only thing that throws a hole in that. But I think there's something to that. Maybe that is an answer that we would get in a sequel.
But see, I don't think it has anything to do with the Iron City versus the floating cities. I think it still has to do, kind of like the American Revolution. A colony doesn't want to pay its taxes or doesn't want to give whatever it is it's giving back to Earth because why should we?
Yeah.
That's the American Revolution right there. So why couldn't that be this story? The Martians, the colony of Mars, said, we're done. We're not going to do that. We're going to send our elite fighting teams out there and defeat you in a war.
Yeah, they come back to Earth to do that, though. It just, I don't know, it just seems weird to do that. Because with the American Revolution, the Brits came here.
Right. I know. It's all speculation. I don't know why they went to war.
Yeah.
I'm just giving a context of what could have been a trigger, something that caused the separation of the two. When I believe, my theory is that the colony and Earth were a team.
Right.
And then something happened, and Mars said, we don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah. And then they attacked Earth, or vice versa.
Who knows the whole? Yeah, they could. Yeah, Nova could have attacked.
And that's kind of like it gets to the sequel question. So, I'm really interested in this backstory. I'm really interested in the lore of this world that they've built, that they've introduced to us. You know, I really enjoyed this film. And I really want to see a sequel to learn about, get answers to these questions.
I do too.
Because there's still a lot.
I really do too.
Is there anything you want? Do you think you want to see in a sequel? Do you want to have them cover the lore a little more? Maybe learn more about Nova.
I'd like to see a sequel. I'd like to build out going forward, and then maybe down the line do a prequel.
Oh,
like years later, do a prequel.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
That's a really good idea. I'm normally not a fan of prequels, but this type of story demands
because it wouldn't even have to follow Alita to do a prequel.
Right.
You can just follow anybody. It could be an Earthling. It could be a Martian. It could be whatever.
Yeah, but even following Alita, I mean, I would love to see 300 years in the past.
Yeah.
What was that war and learn about it. So I hope there is one, and there might be hope for a sequel because this opened number one in the U.S. with $27 million this past weekend. You know, hopefully it connects with audience like it did with us, and hopefully it continues to make money. Like, I may end up seeing it again because in theaters because I really liked it. I'm definitely going to buy it on DVD when it comes out.
I'm buying it.
Because I just had a lot of fun with this film. James Cameron, Rich Rodriguez, who's the director, I thought a great job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other thoughts about Alita Battle Angel, Steven?
No, I think we covered everything. This is a great movie. It's so much fun. It's an awesome adventure. There's a little Romeo and Juliet style love story. It's an origin story. It's the future. Oh my gosh, it's got everything.
It does kind of have everything.
Yeah.
It's a really good popcorn movie too.
Yeah.
Oh, one last thing I forgot to mention is Alita's just badass. Like, she kicks everyone's ass in this film. It's amazing.
She's a tiny little girl that just destroys everyone.
Wrecks people.
Yeah.
It's really just fun to watch. Like, I really like the character. So, all right, that's it for episode 5. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at the Porgcorner. Leave a comment. You know, discuss the film with us. You know, have you seen it? Are you going to see it? Did this review convince you to see it? Hopefully it did. Until next time, guys. Peace.